Hello, hello, hello. If you can hear me, please type in the chat box and say you can hear me. If you can hear me, please locate your chat and say you can hear me so I can be sure that I'm speaking to you all. Can we hear me? I'm waiting for our responses. Can we hear me? Please go to your chat box and type, I can hear you. I'm still waiting. I've not seen any response. I need to be sure that we can hear me before I can start. All right. Okay, I see one person responding. Okay, 2 people. Can others hear me, please? I've seen 2 people responded. I'm waiting for the rest. We're already more than 5 in the room. At least I need 5 answers before we can start. All right. 3 people, 2 more people, and then we kick off. All right. One more person, and then we are set to go. I'm still waiting for us. One more person, and we are set to go. All right, I see someone responded with an emoji. I want to assume that you can hear me clearly. All right, so we start the class right now. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruth, and I am your English tutor. All right, so I'm very sure that you understand what's going on here, and we are here for the UTME preparatory class. And like I mentioned, I am going to be taking you English language. So rest assured, English language is fun, and I want to believe that we make it fun. All right. So as much as possible, we have made sure that your syllabus has been simplified such that even if you never understood anything about English language before, once you attend this class, be sure that you are good to go to write your exam. So please, I want to enjoin us that try as much as possible not to miss any part of this class. So today we are starting with synonyms. All right, if you've seen your syllabus, I'm sure you know that there's lexis and there's lexis, and we have about three sections. You have the comprehension section, you have the lexis and structure, and then you have the oral form. But we are going to be starting with the lexis and structure. And the first thing we have here is synonyms and antonyms. Synonyms and antonyms. And I want to believe that some people might be wondering synonyms and antonyms. We understand what is going on. You understand what is going on because it's something that you have been learning since you were probably in primary school. Yes. So, but this time it's a little complicated, but we have made it very easy for you. Okay. So, synonyms and antonyms. I'm going to be starting with the simple definition that we already know. When we talk about synonyms, we're usually talking about words that are similar in their meanings. Words that are similar in their meanings. Okay. Now, when we hear, maybe or maybe not, we know that synonyms are not necessarily words that are the same in meaning. That was why I used the word similar. So it means that no two words can have exactly the same meaning. And that means that when you have two words, you cannot comfortably or confidently use them interchangeably. All right. We're going to be looking at some things, and please just follow me as I go. All right. So we have synonyms, and of course, when we talk about synonyms and we are talking about antonyms, we are talking about words, right? So for synonyms, we have words that are similar, and for antonyms, we have words that are opposite in meaning. All right. So we have words that are similar and words that are opposite in meaning. Okay. So talking about synonyms here, like I mentioned earlier, we have all words and you can't use them interchangeably. Right. So I want us to understand very well how context can affect synonyms and can affect antonyms. Right. So I mentioned that synonym is a word that has similar meaning with another word. And we can also say they have nearly the same meaning. So when you use similar or nearly the same meaning, we are talking about the same thing. Now let's look at this word happy. You have a word such as happy. When you talk about happy, you can look at other words that you can use to replace it. okay? And you can talk about a word like joyful or cheerful. All right. Now you can look at a word as big, and you can have a word that is similar to it as large or huge. Now, like I mentioned, please follow me. There's somewhere I'm going. We want to talk about context and why or how context can affect these words that will make them not look the same as we usually see them. Okay, so we can have a word like angry, and you have synonyms like mad and furious. All right, before we now go too deep into it, okay, let's look at this word mad. Now, when you hear the word mad, what usually comes to your mind? Okay, in the chat box, I want us to reply. Just reply what comes to your mind when you hear the word mad. If you can hear me and you are following me, when you hear the word mad, what comes to your mind first? I'm in the chat waiting for our responses. Yes, crazy, crazy. All right. Can we have more answers? I've seen 2 people responded, and that's encouraging. I'm waiting for our responses. Okay, someone says angry. We have crazy, we have angry. Mental, oh God, yes, mental. All right, let's make do with these responses. When you hear the word mad, you have something, you have an image in your head, something like crazy, okay? Something like, okay, looks like this person is running something, like something is going on upstairs, okay? That's when you hear the word mad. Now, if there's no context, can you confidently say that you can replace the word mad or the word angry with mad? Not necessarily. So you need the context before you can say that a word is synonymous to another. All right. I hope we get where I'm coming from. So we talk about angry and you talk about mad. All right. Mad in its own form has another meaning, but it's also synonymous to angry because you can use mad in the context to mean angry. All right. But the word mad itself, the first thing that will usually come to someone's mind is probably crazy, like running mental, etc. etc. All right. For synonyms, I just explained that it works in context. The same goes with antonyms. Not all of the times, but most of the times. All right. For the opposite, an antonym is a word that has the opposite meaning of another word. The opposite meaning of another word. For synonyms, we said words that are similar in meaning or words that mean nearly the same thing. But for antonyms, we mean words that have opposite meaning to another word. All right. So you can have a word like hot, and then you know the opposite of hot is cold. All right. And you can also have another word like freezing. Okay. You can have a word like big, and you already know that the opposite of this is small or little. And then we can have another word like fast, right? And you can have the antonyms as slow and sluggish. Okay, now let's speak this word hot. Hot. If I use them in a context, of course, we are moving right into context now, and I'm going to be explaining what I mean by context. If I use the word hot in the context and I say the tea is hot. Here is a word, right? And I say the man is hot. Now, here are two sentences. The tea is hot, the man is hot. Of course, we know that this subject and this subject are not the same thing. So definitely, this word is affected in meaning by the subject and the context. So this is where context comes in. The tea is hot. The kind of hot we are talking about is only applicable to tea in a particular context. And when you move to the next sentence, you have the man is hot. Of course, you can expect that the same hot that we use for tea is the same hot that we use for man. All right. So when we talk about context, what are we talking about? We are talking about the words that we find in a sentence that make a word mean what it actually means. Context, the simple form or the simple definition I can give it is the words found in a sentence that makes a word mean what it means. Now, we have the tea is hot, the man is hot. We have four words each in sentence one and sentence two. All right. So all of these words are the context that helps hot mean what it means. And all of those words in sentence two, all right, are the context that helps hot mean what it means. Okay? So when we say the tea is hot and you want to talk about the antonyms for hot, you can easily say the tea is cold because, of course, you understand what it means. And context has helped you identify the kind of hot that is being talked about. But when we talk about the man is hot, you need to look at the context and the sentence itself. What do they mean by the man is hot? Is it like the man is a fine man, like a kind of fine man? When you see a man and you look at it, this is my spec, and you can say this man is hot. Of course, when you want to say the antonyms, you're not going to say the man is cold, right? Okay, so context has helped us define what hot is in sentence one, and context has helped us determine what hot is in sentence two. All right, now I'm going to refer this to the questions that you will usually find in your UTME, because of course you're going to be doing synonyms and antonyms under lexis and structure, where they tell you that, okay, choose the word that is nearly opposite in meaning or that is nearly similar or the same in meaning. Now, you can't just choose a word if you do not understand context. That is why we are talking about context under synonyms and antonyms. So the very first thing you are to look at when you are talking about synonyms and antonyms is the fact that there is a context. You need to understand the sentence first before you can choose the synonyms or the antonyms. All right. So synonyms and antonyms in different contexts, we need to understand that both synonyms and antonyms cannot be easily used interchangeably, just like what I explained here. For sentence one, hot is different from the hot in sentence two. So you can't just use cold, or you just assume that cold is the antonyms of hot without knowing the context, without knowing the background of the sentence. Okay, we are still moving on. I'm using another example. Let's talk about big. Okay, we can add a word like big. Okay, please, if you are with me, just raise your hand in the chat box. If you are still in class and you can hear me clearly, just raise your hand in the chat box so I know you are following. I'm waiting. Or just drop an emoji, maybe your favorite emoji that you can locate. so I know that you're still with me. Okay, awesome. I see that Suliyat is with me. That's great. Okay, I see Onome is with me. That's awesome. I'm waiting for the rest of us. Please drop an emoji if you are with me and you can hear me clearly. I'm still waiting. Kindly drop your emojis if you are listening. I'm still in the chat box while we continue. I mentioned the word big. Yes. So for big, you can have a sentence like the cake was big, or the cake is big, however way you want to put it. The cake was big. And you can have sentence two as that is a big mistake. Right. So we have the word big here, we have the word big here, and we have two sentences. Now, in these sentences, we know that big in sentence one and big in sentence two are not the same, even though it is the same word. But when we are going to bring out synonyms, we know that they do not have the same synonyms. And if we're going to bring out the antonyms, we know that the antonyms are not the same. Okay, so for sentence one, you have the cake is big. The big here talks about size. All right, so we can say large in size, large in size. And then when we talk about sentence two, the big here can actually mean serious. Okay, serious. So the cake was large in size, and that is a serious mistake. We already know that this big, the big here and the big here are definitely not the same thing. And how can we determine that the big in sentence one is not the same as the big in sentence two? We can only determine that because of context. So the context for sentence one and the context for sentence two are different. That is how we can know that the synonyms for big in sentence one is different from the synonyms in big for sentence two. All right. So here are the examples I have here before we move to the other part. So if you have any questions regarding what we've done, please start collating them because I will answer questions shortly. All right, we want to quickly move to how context affect word meanings. We have looked at the definitions of synonyms or the explanations to synonyms and antonyms, and we have looked at what context means and how we've seen on the surface how context can affect synonyms and antonyms or can affect words and their meanings. So we are diving deep into how context can affect word meanings. How context can affect word meanings. All right. So rubbing this off. If you are still with me, I would still like that you drop some emojis so that I know that you are with me before we continue. Yes. Oluwafemi Oluwaseun, yes, I can see you. All right. Please drop your emojis. Drop your emojis if you are still in class and you can hear me clearly. All right. Yes, Leah, I can see you. I'm waiting for the rest of us. We're definitely more than three in this room. So please respond if you can hear me and you're still with us. Drop your favorite emoji. Awesome. Onome, I see you. I've seen three people responded. I'm waiting for the rest of us. All right. So we continue, and I said we're going to be looking at how context affect word meanings. Okay, so how context affect word meanings. All right. So the first thing we are looking at, we are going to be looking at types of meanings before we go into how context can affect word meanings. All right. The first one we are looking at is ordinary meaning. Ordinary meaning. Okay. So when you hear the word ordinary, what comes to your mind? Please let's respond in the chat box if you're with me. What comes to your mind when you hear the word ordinary? Are we here with me? I can't see anyone's response. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Okay, when we talk about ordinary meaning, we are talking about meaning in its barest form. What is just there, like what comes to your mind first when you hear a word. Okay, so this is also what we call literal. So literal meaning, what comes to your mind first when you hear a word. All right, so that's like the basic or the direct meaning of a particular word, nothing attached to it. Okay, so the very first thing that comes to your mind when you hear a word, and we can look at an example to talk about the word door. All right, When you hear the word door, I want to assume that everybody knows what door is. When you hear the word door, someone says, shut the door, or please open the door for me, or I'm at your door. You wouldn't need to ask the person, "No, what do you mean by door? Do you mean this kind of door or another door?" Okay. So the first thing that comes to your mind first when you hear the word door is like an object, a physical object that has an handle where you can actually go in and you can come out. So the ordinary meaning of a door is a physical object with a handle that can open or close. That's the ordinary meaning. So when we talk about the ordinary meaning, we talk about literal meaning, the basic and the direct meaning of a particular word. That is ordinary meaning. Then number two, we talk about figurative meaning. Figurative meaning. Okay. All right. So when you talk about figurative meaning, maybe from figure of speech or something, you might have an understanding of what figurative mean. But when we talk about figurative meaning, we're talking about when a word is used in a way that is not in its literal form, that in its ordinary form. The first one we talk about is ordinary meaning, literal meaning, like the word or the things that come to your mind first when you hear a word. But for figurative meaning, when you hear a word, you know that it doesn't mean the literal meaning. It doesn't mean what comes to your head first when you hear the word. For instance, if you have an example like, she has a heart of gold, all right? She has a heart of gold. She has a heart of gold. Now, when you talk about gold in this instance, the ordinary meaning that comes to your mind is something precious. You talk about something expensive, because when you talk about gold, you want to talk about something carat, and then you are looking at it like, okay, this is money, this is expensive. But when you talk about she has the heart of gold, are you going to use the ordinary meaning or the literal meaning of gold to judge what the heart of a person is? In this case, you know that this is a figurative meaning, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the person has the art of the expensive 18 karat gold. All right. You only know that the probably or the speaker probably means that the person he or she is referring to is kind, a very kind person. When you say someone has the art of gold, you know you're talking about someone that is kind. All right. So figurative meaning is different from ordinary meaning. The ordinary meaning is the literal form of a word, what a word means directly in its literal form. But for figurative meaning, it is far from it. And figurative meanings are usually generated from context and background. So people can give meanings to a particular word such that the word does not necessarily mean what it means in the literal, but now carries another word in its entire form. All right. And the third one we are looking at is idiomatic meaning. Idiomatic meaning. So when you talk about idiomatic meaning, you know that from the word idioms, the expressions where the meaning is not obvious. The meaning is not obvious from what it looks. Okay. All right. So we have idiomatic meaning. And then, like I mentioned, you talk about idiomatic, you're talking about the word idiom. And when you talk about idioms, you look at some idioms sometimes and you cannot even determine what it means, because looking at the sentence, you can generate what it literally means. Okay, so the meanings of idioms are usually far from what it looks like. Okay, so I'll define these as expressions where the meaning is not obvious from the individual word. Okay, so we have an example like she spilled the beans. She spilled the beans. She spilled the beans. Now, when we look at the ordinary meaning of she spilled the beans, you want to imagine something in your head, like someone was probably carrying a plate of beans or a bowl of beans, and then maybe going and then they mistakenly or however way just spilled it on the ground. That's the ordinary meaning, because when you look at it, anyone you tell that to, like she spilled the beans, that's the first thing that will come to their head. That's the imagery that is formed in their head. But for the case of idiomatic meaning, what it means is actually far from spilling the beans. So in this case, it actually means that she revealed a secret that is being kept probably by a group of people. She spilled it. She revealed the secret. So when you look at the word, she revealed the secret and she spilled the beans, you do not see any correlation. You do not see any similarity between them, because it's a figurative meaning. She spilled the beans, meaning she revealed the secret. That's the figurative meaning from the sentence, which is different from the ordinary meaning. All right, so usually context helps us determine if a word is used in its ordinary form or in its figurative meaning or in its idiomatic meaning. So when you look at these three, the context can help you decide whether a word is synonymous to a particular word or not. I hope we get what that means. So we've looked at ordinary meaning, we look at figurative meaning and idiomatic meaning. And I'll quickly take that again. Ordinary meaning is the literal meaning, a meaning in its barest form. If you want to remember this well, you can say when you talk about ordinary meaning, you talk about a meaning that comes to your head, or what comes to your head first when you hear a particular word. All right. Now, when you talk about figurative meaning, a figurative meaning is not used in the literal form. Figurative meaning is not used in the literal form. It means something else different from the ordinary meaning. And then when we talk about the idiomatic meaning, this is totally different. It has nothing to do with what is actually written as an idiom. Okay, so that's like the three different meanings that we talk about when we want to look at synonyms and antonyms. And context, like I said, help us to identify what a word means if we understand the kind of meaning a sentence carry. All right, we still have a long way to go in synonyms and antonyms, because we are still going to have to look at some other things that help us determine the synonyms and antonyms. But for today, we are only looking at how context affects word meanings. All right. So if there are any questions, please, like I mentioned earlier, kindly drop your questions so I can attend to them. Kindly drop your questions so I can attend to them. I have a few questions for us that I would like us to do together, but I would like us that we drop our questions if you have any. From the class that we've done today, we've looked at the meaning of synonyms and antonyms, right? We looked at the meaning of context. and we've looked at how context affects word meanings. So if you have any questions on this, please kindly drop them. If you do not have any question and you perfectly understand what we've learned in the class today, kindly type I understand. But if you have questions on any area, talking about context, maybe the meanings that we've looked at, kindly ask your questions. Kindly ask your questions. All right, someone says I understand. Please, can the rest of us respond? Because I have a question that I would love that we attend to together. So I would love and encourage our participation. I've seen only one person respond. I've seen only one person respond. Please let the rest of us respond so that we can attend to this question. Okay, so this question that I want us to attend to is from UTME 2021. All right. But I can't see our responses. Okay. All right. So I have a few questions here, but let's start with the very first one. Okay. I think I would have to type that out. It says, the man was castigated by villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. All right. What we are doing right now is to choose the one that is most nearly opposite in meaning. Most nearly opposite in meaning. So we have, the man was castigated by villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. Okay, and the word that we are looking for, its antonym, is castigated. Castigated. Right. So, and here we have castigated. Now we want to choose a word that is opposite in meaning for castigated, and we have four options, right? Option one says scolded. Option two says criticized. Option three says justified. And option four says praised. Okay, I'm bringing that out to us so we can all see the options. Can we still hear me, please? Can we still hear me? If you can hear me, please drop an emoji. All right. Yeah, I see someone respond. All right. So the man was castigated by villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. Of course, I mentioned that we are looking for the antonyms. And from what we have learned today, we talk about context. So we need to look at the context first before we determine anything, before we can determine the opposite of castigated. So when we look at the sentence, the man was castigated by villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. Now, does castigated in this sentence, or does the context here mean that this word is in its ordinary form, or in a figurative form, or an idiomatic form, before we can decide? Now, sometimes in UTME, you come across different options that may confuse you. You look at two options and they look the same, they are synonymous, and then you are wondering which one is it. The answer is in context. All right. If you can determine the context in the sentence, then you will be able to determine what the answer is from two options that look alike. Now, when we look at the word scolded, we look at the word criticized, we look at the word justified, we look at the word praised. Now, scolded and criticized, you can say that both are in the negative, and justified and praise, you look at them as in the positive. Because this option says that we are looking for the opposite in meaning, you know that castigated is already a negative word. So what you are looking for now is the positive word. So the first thing you have to do is to rule out these two options. Okay? Once the word is in the negative, if the word means negative and you want to look for the antonyms, it means that you are looking for a positive word. So usually UTME is going to present to you four options. Two of them will be negative, two of them will be positive. So your answer is from the positive. Don't bother yourself with the negative, because negative cannot be the antonym of negative. If you were talking about synonyms now, you can talk about negative being the synonyms of negative. But once you're talking about antonyms and the word is negative, what you are looking for is a positive word as the antonym of the word. So we are ruling out scolded and criticized because they are negative. When you talk about castigated, you mean a word that means punished or strongly scolded, punished. So you can use it in this form, like the man was punished or strongly scolded by the villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. Now, what does scolded mean? Scolded mean spoken to angrily. Okay, so if you scold someone, you speak to that person like angrily in a bid to correct something, right? When you talk about criticize, it means to point out fault. So we already know that these are negative and they cannot mean the antonym of castigated. Now, moving on to the positive, we have justified and we have praised. What does justified means? Justified means explained as right. When something is justified, it means the person has been explained to be right. That thing has been decided to be right. Now, when you talk about praised, praised means to say good things about someone or something. So justified, like I mentioned, is a word that means something has been explained to be right. Now put that in place of castigated. The man was justified by villagers for revealing the secret behind the black pot. Now, when you talk about justified, grammatically, nothing is wrong with it if you replace it with castigated. But does it conveniently replace castigated? Remember, castigated means punished or strongly scolded. Punished or strongly scolded. Okay, that's castigated. Justified now means explained as right. Explained as right. So the man was declared to be right by villagers for revealing the secret behind the pot. Now, hold that one. Now move to the second one, praised. Praised is said when you talk about praise, it means saying good things about something or someone. So if you replace praised with castigated, what do you have? You have the man was praised. Okay, good things were said about the man by the villagers for revealing the secret behind the pot. So which one goes the most, or which one can easily replace castigated according to context? Because when we talk about context, of course, we ruled out the negative and we're focusing on the positive. So castigated, punished, or strongly scolded. Strongly scolded. That means the man was scolded by the villagers for revealing the secret behind the pot. So for justified, it means good things were said about the man. For praise, rather, good things were said about the man by the villagers for revealing the secret behind the pot. But for justified, you talk about the man was declared right. So which one do you think goes the most? Even though justified and praised are positive and you can easily replace them with castigated, but which one is the most appropriate? If you look at the meanings of these three words, castigated, justified, praised, both of these are positive. This word that we're looking for is negative. So justified in itself is not wrong grammatically if replaced with this, but the most appropriate one that can replace castigated in this context is praised. Looking at the context for definition of justified, praised, and castigated. So the one that can easily replace castigated is praised. So when you're asked to choose an antonym, like I mentioned, you look at the word that you want to replace. Is it positive or negative? If it is negative, that means you're looking for a positive answer. If it is positive, it means you're looking for a negative answer. So you rule out whichever one you don't need and focus on the two that you need and determine their meanings. All right. So this is for this one. In the next class, we continue with what synonyms and antonyms are and how context affects them. We go deeper into them so that when you see a word at a glance, you can determine what the word means and you can determine the synonyms or the antonyms of that word and choose the appropriate answer. So far, I can't see any question. All right. But I would like us, like I mentioned, this question is from 2021 UTME. All right. So the portion for synonyms and antonyms, I would like that you go over it on the app you're currently using now. There's the place where you can practice for CBT. Okay. So locate 2021 UTME and then you focus on the opposite, the antonyms and the synonyms section to see which one we can answer. I think I would be starting from there in the next class on our synonyms and antonyms. So, like I mentioned, I see no question. So, this is to say everyone understand. So, quickly today, we started with lexemes and structure, and we looked at synonyms and antonyms. And we said that synonyms are words that are similar in meaning. Synonyms are words that are similar in meaning or nearly the same in meaning, while antonyms are words that are opposite in meaning. And I mentioned no two words can be used interchangeably because of context. Context helps us determine what a word is and what word can replace the word as synonyms and as antonyms. All right. So, and we've been able to look at, yes, I like I mentioned, words cannot be easily used interchangeably unless you understand the context for the words. So just like synonyms, some antonyms are also context dependent. Not all of them, but sometimes antonyms depend on context before you can bring out the meaning too. And then we looked at how context affect word meanings. How context affect word meanings. So, and we looked at three major kinds of meanings. We looked at the ordinary or the literal meaning, which means the basic or the direct meaning of a word. We looked at the figurative meaning, which is closer to the ordinary meaning, but it is not used in the literal form. Okay, so it's just used in a way that is not literal, but from it you can guess that this word probably means the positive or the negative depending on what is being used in that word. And then lastly, we looked at the idiomatic meaning. And like I said, idiomatic from the word idiom. When you see an idiom, generally, you cannot determine the literal meaning of that idiom, or you cannot determine what the idiom means if you have to use the literal meaning to judge what the idiom means. So, idiom meanings are far from ordinary meanings. They mean something else entirely. So, when we talk about synonyms, we want to choose synonyms or we want to choose antonyms. You have to look at the context depending on these meanings. So if you are asked to choose an antony or a synonym of a particular word, you look at the context of it. What does the context say about this word? Is the word used in its ordinary meaning before you can determine the synonym or the antonym of the word? Or is it used in its figurative meaning before you determine what to do with it? Or is it used in its idiomatic meaning before you determine the answer to it? All right. So these are what we have looked at today. And do not forget that context refers to the situation in the sentence, the words that you find in a particular sentence to help you determine the meaning of a particular word in that sentence. All right. So please do not forget to go over the UTME question and attend to the antonym side, words that are opposite in meaning. You don't need to attend to everything. Just look for that session that talks about opposite in meaning, where you have to choose words that are nearly opposite in meaning. Just attend to them and look at them in context. Attend to them in context and see how far you can go with them. That's where we're going to be starting in our next class. All right. So please remember to go over what you have learned today. And remember to go over the CBT. Like you all know, it's totally free. So please do well to go over it and see what you can attend to. All right. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.